Hi, welcome to National Radio. Michelle speaking. Today we are going to talk about the apartheid era, the different aspects of how it affects the society and the world today. We will contact our foreign correspondent, who is currently in South Africa. She is going to explain some of the consequences that we can see right now. Furthermore, we will have a special guest who grew up in South Africa and who will share her own experience of apartheid. Moreover, we will have a debate between our guest and Mrs. Johnson later on in the program. There are many different opinions of how and if apartheid still exists in our society today. Therefore, to get a deeper point of view, our guest today will tell us about her childhood in South Africa during the apartheid era, to see how it was back then in comparison to the world today. Welcome, Mrs. Makeba. The apartheid history began in 1948 and ended in 1991. Would you like to explain broadly what apartheid meant, what it was, and how it affected the people of South Africa?
Thank you. Of course. Apartheid was government-enforced racism. The Society of South Africa had a law system which created inequity and which oppressed people based upon ethnicity. Apartheid meant segregation. The inhabitants of South Africa was divided into 4 groups: white, black, Asians, and colored. Likewise, the rights became unequal for the different groups. For instance, there were special restrooms for blacks and whites. The opportunities were also varied and the separateness increased. Moreover, they put up signs to separate the white from the black. For example, it said that the beach were only for the white people. In addition to this, it was not the same school for everyone. The black people didn't have the same opportunities as the white people.
How did apartheid influence you?
Apartheid is the fundamental reason of my work by now. It was because of the unequal rights and opportunities that I began to fight those opinions and to educate for a living. I realized that incomprehension and ignorance creates racist values.
Would you like to describe your emotions during the apartheid? I know that you were a bit younger back then. Do you believe that you had reacted in another way if the apartheid proceeded today?
It was in 1948 when the apartheid history began. I was approximately 11 years old. I noticed a great difference quite immediately. Suddenly, I didn't dare to be located in certain areas which belonged to whites or which I wasn't allowed to be located in, for instance at some bathrooms, restaurants, teams, classes and schools. I also remember one time when I was doing an examination. My manager was racist, therefore I didn't pass only because of my skin color. People that protested was killed because of their expressions and actions, and when you see something like that, you can't really let it go. And that made me feel really scared, and this is something I always going to bring with me, even though I was just a child. I felt much more fright in comparison to earlier. There were much more insecurity in the society. I had no trust in the government or for the police, because all of a sudden we couldn't reckon that the society was on our side, especially affecting equal issues. If the apartheid had proceeded today, I had reacted in a different way. I would have stood up for my opinions, also I would have demonstrated, and I wouldn't have condescended to agree and follow their laws and rules. On the other hand, there is also another opportunity in today's society. You can flee the country. Yet, that isn't an opportunity for me, because I want to decide by my own if I shall live in a country or not, without any restrictions established because of my ethnicity and skin color.
In what ways did the apartheid era affect South Africa?
Apartheid affected the whole political situation in South Africa, but in addition to this, it produced the society today. We have many historical symbols in our community that has significance for the apartheid consequences. For instance, the South African flag. The flag of South Africa is made to symbolize the unity, which developed after the apartheid era. The colors, green, yellow and black, comes from ANC, the African National Congress, which is a political organization with a mission to increase the rights for the black people and with hope to forget the differences between each other and create a cooperative organization. Black for the people, green for the fertility of the land and the mineral wealth. The other colors, red, white and blue, are the colors of the Dutch flag and represent the Boer Republic. Another positive ramification of the apartheid disappearance is that South Africa has cultures from every side of the spectrum. Therefore, it is called the Rainbow Nation.
According to some people, apartheid is apparently parallel with the President of the United States of America, Mr. Trump's thoughts, opinions and actions. There are plenty of people who think that apartheid still exists today, but in a slightly different shape. Do you agree? And can you give some examples that either speaks against or with these statements?
Well, I totally agree with those people who believe that Mr. Trump has racist values. One example of a parallel that you can draw to apartheid is the segregation and separateness which Mr. Trump wants to receive, partly by building the wall. In the news, you can read a lot about Trump and his connection to apartheid. A problem we have is that we, instead of speaking in measured tones about what unites us, we are screaming at each other about what divides us, which is exactly what authoritarian figures like Mr. Trump want. Divided people are easier to rule. That was, after all, the whole point of apartheid, which make Trump's statements pretty clear to the similarities of apartheid. That we cannot live together because we are not the same or look the same, and that we are not of equal worth.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Makeba. You will soon counteract with another guest who supports the apartheid system. But first over to Nicole, who is a foreign correspondent currently located in South Africa. Hi Nicole, can you hear me?
Yes, hello there. I am situated in Cape Town right now. It is approximately 35 degrees Celsius. I arrived to Cape Town yesterday after I had visited the townships where some of the poverty are located in South Africa. The townships are a great example of some of the consequences of the apartheid era, which still exists today.
How is the situation in the townships today?
As I mentioned, the poverty is huge in the townships. In addition to this, the crime rate and alcoholism is high in those areas according to some of the dwellers who live here. This is due to the low level of education in poor areas.
Why has this happened in these townships? Can you give us some reasons why it's connected to the apartheid era? Nicole. Well, it was here the black people were put to distinguish them from the whites. When the black people were moved to these ghettos by the government, there were a huge lack of educational systems which led to underdeveloped communities. The linguistic oppressions was also a part of apartheid. They were divided according to language. Next to me, I have a youth from the township of Kailicha. Her name is Ulimi, and she's going to tell us a bit about the language here.
In our hood, we get people from all over. They speak Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans, Tswana, Wenda, and a bunch more. Since we have so many languages, our authority is real slow because everything has to be translated into all the 11 official languages.
It is very impressive that you know all of this, Ulimi.
Yeah, well, my mother brings me loads of books from the library since we don't really have school nearby.
When were you last time in school?
I can only go to school once per week because I have to provide for my family.
Are there any white children in your class?
No, because everybody in our township are black.
What language do you use in school?
In our school we speak South African English, but we also have some education in our native language.
I have heard that South African English differs from British English. Do you know in what way?
Yes, we used to put the pronunciation a bit forward in our mouths. Bed becomes bid, for example. Otherwise, it is quite similar to the British English.
As you can hear, there is still segregation in these areas. It is a great experience to see the townships and the situation in South Africa right now. There is still a lot to improve, but on the other hand, it has developed much in comparison of the apartheid era. At present, there are penalties for those who express racist remarks. You endanger your employment in some cases, or you may get obligation to pay fine. This is controlled by the state. Thank you for your update, Nicole. There are different opinions and perspectives on the apartheid system and if it still exists. Therefore, we will now listen to a debate between Mrs. Makeba, lecturer of human rights and equality, and Miss Johnson, party leader for a nationalistic party of the United States. Mrs. Makeba, first of all, the remains of the party still exist in South Africa. This can clearly be seen when you look at both education and income. Black citizens are overrepresented in groups of society with the most amount of problems: crime, alcohol, drug issues. There is a direct correlation with the lack of education provided during apartheid for the majority of the black citizens that now are adults.
Miss Jansen, criminality existed before apartheid ended. The difference now is that it has spread to all parts of South Africa. As we see today, more education have not made any difference to the problems experienced. If South Africa would have continued to remain segregated, the white people of South Africa wouldn't have had to suffer from the increased criminality and overall chaos that began when apartheid ended.
Do you approve of a society where people are forbidden to do certain things, and where they don't receive the same basic rights because of the color of the skin? Equal rights for all citizens is a basic principle that democracy is based on.
As you can hear from what Nicole said in the commentary, There cannot be equal rights for all citizens when a big part of them are misconducting and prejudice other people.
But that is about common sense and what you choose to do with the rights you get. We all should still have the same rights because we're all human. It is also understandable that people abuse their rights when they don't get the same and when they are treated in a different way from others. Because then they have nothing to live up to and improve. Michelle, was it something or someone that inspired you to have these opinions? Or where do they come from?
I have got these opinions partly because of some occurrences in my life, but it was mostly my father who inspired me. He was a great man. He stood up for his country by leading a nationalistic party. He is a role model for me. It is because of him that I work with politics today.
No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate. If they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For loves come more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was a huge man. He was the one who gave me hope during the most irredeemable years of apartheid. Miss Johnson, you cannot say anything about this, because you have not experienced this neither emotional or physical. When I heard Nelson Mandela's speech, the first thing I felt was safety. He fought for our rights, and it's something that is very brave. With this in mind, Mandela provided strength to the people and made us feel unity.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Makeba and Miss Jansen. It has been extremely interesting to take part of your thoughts and opinions in this relevant matter. This was all for today. You have listened to Michelle on the National Radio South Africa. Next week, the broadcasts are going to be concerned about the ISIS expansion in Syria. See you then. Goodbye.